It's the 19th of June, 2026. Welcome to my channel, The View from the Shed. It's my first episode or video, my first attempt at doing this. I've been thinking about it for a long time. I've had a long career in uh, information technology and consulting, probably 30, 35 years, and have my own consultancy for the last 10 years. And as I've been getting on in years, my last mandate back in that ended in September was a difficult one. I would call it somewhat toxic. And since then I've been working at getting the toxicity out of my soul. And even though that mandate was successful, it brought to the fore a whole bunch of things that I don't want to do anymore, and a few that maybe I want to do more of. So, who am I, and why am I talking to you here today? Well, I I started off my journey as a farm kid out here in Quebec's eastern townships. I guess it's about an hour southeast of Montreal. We're on the border with New York State, Vermont, and a little bit further east with Maine. We have a long, long history. I'm a fourth generation townshipper. We have a long history of collaborating inside our boundaries between the French and the English, which is not always the case in Quebec, if you know our politics and our history. But also with very close relationships with our neighbors directly across the border, which have been damaged somewhat by the political environment, particularly around trade recently. So we don't have that contact, that daily contact, whether it be through skiing and sports or just cross-border travel to visit the quaint little towns in Vermont. They're similar to our quaint little towns, and we have great reciprocity there. So that's been really slowed down, and I thought that given my own personal background, education, work experience, varied work experience, starting from the farm to the work I've been doing over the last 30 years, uh, I might have a story to tell, a story that resonates with people, um, that may have some shared experiences. Part of the story is really a search. I'm looking to understand what my next steps are going to be. I don't feel like I'm ready to retire. I'm 64 years old, but the world might be telling me that I'm going to retire whether I feel like it or not. And I don't want that to be just a typical retirement. If it is going to be the case, I want to do something that keeps me my mind active, keeps me physically active, and gives me purpose. And those the kind of decisions that require are really an ongoing journey. And I thought I would share that with a public that might have some ideas to share with me in return. And so I'll be very much looking forward to that feedback. And why the view from the shed? Well, part of the detox journey that I've undertaken included the purchase of a large shed. It's 12 by 24, and it was a prefabricated shed, and it was a very complicated, complex exercise to bring it onto my property and put it in the place that it's sitting, which is on high elevation, probably about 20 feet higher, maybe even more than 20 feet higher than the entrance to our property, on top of a big rock. And to set it up there, and then the part that I really used for detoxing was I insulated it, and I finished the inside with cedar. Some of the cedar from my own property here. We have about 2 acres, and the cedar was cut as we made space to bring the shed up, but also to place the shed. And I sent it off to a local sawmill and had it turned into planks. And you can see some of it on the ceiling above here, and on the wall over my left shoulder. Uh, the rest of the walls were done with cedar I had to purchase. I didn't have enough cedar to complete the whole project, but it gave me a sense of accomplishment to use and not waste that beautiful lumber, and the smell of it, the whole exercise of making something, I think, quite beautiful, or at least beautiful to the eyes of a guy who spent a lot of time in a barn or a shed, um, and to do it for a greater purpose. And the end result has been a pretty good workspace. Actually, I think it's an excellent workspace. And while I was doing this, which took me months, I I really discovered the contemplative value of being outside in at the beginning of some difficult conditions. It was a very cold winter, and I hadn't had the electrical done, and the electricity didn't feed the heating system yet, and so I had to really work my way through that. Uh, and every step, every day, every week that I invested in the shed, things got better, got more interesting. The shed started to take shape and look better. So it was very rewarding, and it was a great opportunity to clear my mind and create space for thinking through what my next steps might be. In the middle of that, I interrupted the process by getting in my truck and doing something that I've always wanted to do. I headed west, and I drove the long way out west. I didn't go through the states. It was at the time when Minnesota was on fire with ice raids, and I decided I didn't want to go through Minnesota to get to Western Canada, which is the fastest way to go west. So I drove all around the Great Lakes, up through Sault Ste. Marie, Thunder Bay, into Manitoba, all the way to Banff and Banff, Alberta, where I spent 2 weeks in the mountains skiing, downhill skiing, cross country skiing, breathing in the abject beauty that is Alberta. And I had my wife join me. She flew out to Calgary. She's not into road trips. Picked her up in Calgary, and we spent a wonderful week together, just experiencing Banff and the Rockies and Albertan hospitality, and then drove back. So the total was probably 11,000 kilometers. A lot of thinking time, a lot of time to sing Johnny Cash songs while I'm driving, a lot of time to think, and and I have to tell you, it was a fantastic trip. But I highly recommend people doing it. We live in an absolutely extraordinary and beautiful country, uh, full of extraordinary people, and and I've felt inspired every day and since about how important it is for us to fight for our sovereignty and our place in the world. And I feel like we're doing that. And some of those topics that are currently in the news are things that I'd like to discuss. And what gives me an opinion that might be worthwhile participating in a discussion. Well, I started off as an academic. I have an undergraduate degree and a graduate degree from a large French university here in the Montreal area, and my master's degree is in strategic studies and international relations. So I have a very strong background in military studies, in military history, in Canadian history, international history. And I wrote my thesis on Canada's role in international peacekeeping, which is, where it was, the perfect pastime for a middle power. And we hear lots of talk of middle powers today in the news. It's been a central theme in our Prime Minister's Davos speech and follow up speeches since. And So I'm very interested in where that plays out, and I have some strong opinions on what might work, what might not work, and what we're currently doing. And so I'm hoping to create an interesting conversation around that and get feedback from viewers, and maybe that'll spring ideas for new topics to discuss. But back to the shed for a minute. Um, just getting the shed up here was an interesting experience, and I've got bits and pieces of video and pictures. I haven't really figured out how to edit it all yet, and I'm going to try and do that either at the tail end of this video or in a separate video. But I was working with a man whose name was Denis, and Denis was um, a man of little formal education, but one of the most educated men I'd ever met. A great leader, a coach, a teacher, and to me, a great friend. I met him when I owned a small horse farm about 17 kilometers from here. When my wife and I decided we needed some permanent fencing to keep in the horses and some really well put together electric fencing as well. So we wanted cedar type fencing um, that was relatively low maintenance, but very robust. And Denis was the master of that fencing. And that's how we met. So we, at that time, built about, I'd say, a kilometer of 3-rail cedar fence to keep the horses in, and probably 2 or 3 kilometers of electric fence for our little horse and donkey herd. Um, we stayed very close through that process. He helped me with my equipment. I had 3 tractors and multiple pieces of equipment that were in constant need of maintenance. And he could fix anything, and he could teach me how to fix just about anything, from putting chains on tractors to fixing snow blowers to sharpening blades to making sure everything ran properly. And it was just a joy to work with him. And he had this ability to inspire inspire you to follow him and to listen to his lead. And it was something that for the last 20, 30 years, I was the boss. And it's great when you can inspire people to follow you, but when you're the boss, you can also push them to follow you. Not the perfect scenario, but it works nonetheless in the business world. So I learned a lot from him about leadership. I learned a lot from him about how to inspire people to do more than what's in their comfort zone. Anyway, last summer when I bought the shed, I consulted him on how we were going to get up on this rock. And my thoughts were it was going to be a crane. It was going to require a crane. And he said, no, we can lay down some of the cedar logs that we're going to send to the sawmill, and we can set up a complex pulley system in the trees. And with the help of a tractor with a backhoe, we can roll it up. We can drag it up. And so that's exactly what we did. If you hear some jingling in the background, that's my good buddy Leon, the dog. Leon, he's getting restless because I'm talking too much. Um, and I'll introduce you to him shortly. He's just at the end of my hand here. If he wants to get up and say hello, we'll put him on the screen. He's much better looking than I am. So Denis was helping me last summer when we brought the shed in, and I didn't know, and I don't think he really knew, but he was in the advanced stages of pancreatic cancer. Not a good way to go. And he was the type of guy that stayed away from doctors and hospitals, and I respected that. At the end, he had no choice. But we brought the shed up here in late June, early July a year ago, and by the second week August, he was gone. And it was an unusual experience. He had participated in the Canadian Quebec system of medical assistance in dying, something that I might talk about in another video. I've had 2 friends participate in that this year, and I found it very difficult. I respect their decisions, but I found it very difficult as a friend, and I felt that it increased the grieving process. And another element of difficulty for me with Denis' passing was that he was part of my retirement plan. Believe it or not, uh, I was going to leave 35 years of consulting and IT transformational work and large IT outsourcing transactions for the IBM, HP, Computer Sciences Corporation, and Deloitte, and I was going to take a chainsaw like the one above my shoulder there and help him in the woods, and learn and and just experience something very different, something much more similar to the beginning of my working life on the farm. So I've been working since I've been old enough to hold a shovel, and started off on the farm where we had horses, cows, goats, pigs, chickens, you name it. It was not a money making farm. It was my father had a full time job elsewhere, but he had a couple of sons and a daughter, and our job was to keep it all going. So very good learning experience. And after my education, which was in international relations and military studies, strategic studies, I went to work for defense. So I've had some experience working at defense headquarters. I taught in a military college for a while. I taught nuclear strategy, classical strategy, introduction to international relations to young officer cadets. What a fantastic opportunity that was. And then the first Gulf War broke out, and I was asked to go to National Defense Headquarters in Ottawa and work in the communications group, handling ministerial correspondence from the Minister of National Defense in a team of two or three other people. So if you wrote a letter to the Minister of National Defense in the early 90s, chances are myself or one or two of my colleagues were the people who drafted the response for the minister's signature and did the research behind it. And everybody, no matter how crazy the letter, got an individualized response. 5 years or so of being a civil servant, I'd had enough, and I needed more action. I was heading into my second child with my wonderful wife, and I decided to seek out opportunities in the private sector. And one thing led to another, and I ended up in IT, actually in a field that I really knew nothing about, which was IT outsourcing, big, large data center outsourcing. And my first gig, when they were asking me about joining the team, I said, "Well, why me? I don't really know a computer from a toaster," which was a bit of an exaggeration because I was an early adopter. They said, "Well, we need somebody who speaks French, has some good client skills, and can take a vicious beating, get up the next morning, brush themselves off, and go back to the office, get back in the game." So they weren't understating that vicious beating part. And I was in that business for 25 years, and then 10 consulting afterwards. And it was exciting, interesting. 25 years of beatings. Nobody wants to be outsourced. They're multi-billion-dollar deals, and you have to fight every single day to keep them alive, keep them going, keep them moving forward. And it was mostly with banks and insurance companies. So I was really looking forward to working with Denis and doing something different. And that's just not going to happen. So I've got to get on to the next chapter on my own without that friendship. But I have other great friends. Um, I have a beautiful wife whom I met 2 weeks before my 22nd birthday, and we've been together ever since. So well over 40 years. And I've got a couple of great sons, beautiful grandson, another grandchild on the way. I've got what must be my best friend, Leon, the dog here, who's a bird dog. He's a wired-haired pointing griffon, which is a breed that's quite popular around here, but they're real characters. I don't hunt, and uh, although I live in an area where there's a lot of hunting, I love the intelligence characteristics of a hunting dog, and he's become a very very close friend. So I've managed to spend the last 6 months clearing my head, detoxing, and one of the opportunities that's presented itself, and I'm not sure if it's really an opportunity yet or not, is to present views and engage in a dialogue um, on YouTube. I started watching quite a lot of YouTube during the pandemic, and I've found it mostly good and entertaining. Um, I found it informative in fact, it's very difficult to get news anymore unless you go through a process like or a social media platform like YouTube. And I'm I hesitated, not sure I wanted to put myself out there, but as time goes on, and I'm starting to think about what I'm going to do next, I thought this would be a good thing to try. So if you're interested, and if you think I have a background that might provide you with some interesting opportunities to exchange ideas or to provide new ideas, I'd love it if you would press like and subscribe. And we'll see probably rapidly whether this is something that people are interested in. And I invite you to stand by for the next video, uh, um, which will be a topic yet to be decided. So thanks very much for giving me this time in your day. I look forward to your comments. And once again, please press like and subscribe, and we'll see where this goes. Welcome to the journey. As I mentioned earlier, I was going to post some video clips and pictures of the exercise of getting the shed into place. And here we see the shed coming up to some wires in our driveway. That's my friend Denis directing the operator on how to bring it in. The trailer was a really special, customized piece of machinery that could drop wheels down underneath it, lift the bed above the wheels that were acting as a trailer, and move the shed from left to right, forward or back as necessary to eventually place it normally in what would be in its resting place. In our case, we were putting it as close to the next stage, which was to move it up the hill. Here, Denis is directing his co-worker, 86-year-old owner of the tractor and backhoe, who was quite a character, and together they were even a greater character. So they dropped it, pushed it onto these logs, and you can see the actual trailer barely moving, but then the shed extends beyond. And we dropped it on the logs, ready for the next phase. And the next phase involves some additional clearing of the land. You can see the pad in the back that we had established. And here we're moving it up, rolling it on logs that we eventually sent to the sawmill. It's attached to a pulley system with a winch in the trees, assisted by the backhoe on the tractor. There's my general manager and supervisor, Leon, watching. And we set it down in its place and started building a retaining wall and a driveway, and came out quite nice. And then the next stage for me was to install a floor, which I used horse stall mats and screwed those down to give it a nice clean look. This is some of the wood that we sent to the sawmill. And then I had the rough electrical done. I installed the exterior fixtures and eventually did the interior fixtures, which was critical because by the time I started doing the insulation, it was winter. You can see the heater in the middle. Used insulation, used rock wool, put up a proper vapor barrier, and then started putting in the cedar. And the ones you see there are a combination of the ones we milled. And I built the shelving and installed all my tools and little collections of lanterns and so on. So that's the shed project in short. Great workspace, great project, great way to detox. Hope to see you in the next video. Like and subscribe.